Have you ever gone to buy something online and found that the same item are 12 different prices across 12 different websites? Have you ever walked into a brick and mortar store and found the exact same thing? Unfortunately, the rigging world is not exempt. In today's episode of The Rigging Professor, I'll tell you why you're probably paying more for your rigging equipment than you should, and why it's kind of your fault. Hey guys, it's Devin here from Mazzella Companies, and let me start by saying, okay, it's not all your fault, but you do have a big part to play in how much you're spending on rigging equipment. In this video, we'll cover all the things that affect the cost of rigging equipment. We'll cover online versus shopping at brick and mortar stores. We'll cover the when, where, why, how you need it, and why that all affects costs. And then we'll wrap up by covering research and why research is an integral part in you figuring out what you need to pay and how good you are at figuring out where the best deals are. To help me tell this story, I reached out to Terry Pippick, an industry veteran with over 20 years experience in the rigging world. And we started by covering the differences between buying online versus buying brick and mortar.
Cost is always an issue, and it always will be. I mean, how often do you buy something without knowing the cost? It's pretty rare. You know, the brick and mortar store has inventory, more carrying cost. They have availability of service, and they have people that can help you with your rigging issues, your solutions you need. To have a salesperson or a sales specialist or an inside customer service person costs money. The online store is built for quick turnaround, lower amount of choices you have for inventory, and you have no support, or very little support.
So it makes sense that online offers ease of purchase, but it doesn't offer a whole lot of support. On the flip side, if you go to a brick and mortar store, they have what you need then and there, but there's an inside salesperson there to kind of help guide you along or take you through the purchase. And that got me thinking, when you find a salesperson, aren't there also sales quotas?
I mean, obviously salespeople make their money from selling. So the more they sell, the more they make, but it's the same thing as with an online store. It's all about sales and taking care of the customer.
Thanks to smartphone technology, I can buy a present from my phone for a friend whose birthday party I'm heading to but forgot about. And you just can't beat that convenience. When you're buying online, you're paying the extra price for convenience. So then I asked Terry, if online is so convenient, why would somebody pick a brick and mortar store?
Somebody buying rigging products, they may go, okay, I'm gonna buy a spray paint, some gloves, and I need some slings. They're looking for convenience. And in that convenience, you're also probably gonna get a higher price. The rigging stores that focus just on rigging, they seem to be very competitively priced. They're buying in bulk in those products. It's so narrow that they're very good at keeping the cost down on those products. There's times where somebody's standing waiting in your showrooms and they're getting immediate service for what they need. And we'll guarantee 4-hour delivery. It's all about the need of the customer and what they're willing to spend to get that service. You're not gonna go online, or you're not gonna go to a big box store or something and get something that fast, what you need in an emergency situation.
So what are you buying? How much of it do you need? When do you need it by? Those three things really do affect the cost of your rigging equipment. And Terry told me something as easy as just knowing what you're gonna buy really does help.
If you already know what you're buying, the simple type products, you could shop them around. You could look at online, you can call the rigging store, you could look anywhere to find those products because you know exactly what it is you need. Sometimes there's specialty lifting needs that customers will have that it's gonna take some time to figure out what it is they need, when they need it, how it's gonna work, issues of ergonomics, issues of durability, all those things come into play. You're gonna pay more for that.
So say you don't know what you need. That's when a lifting specialist comes in. They'll offer advice, guidance, give you recommendations, and that will absolutely affect the cost of your rigging equipment. But what I found out is it can go either way. It can cost you more, or they can even save you money.
It could do two things. It could increase the cost because you're getting a service that you're gonna pay for, whether it be in product or whether it be inspections or training. And it could also save you money because our sales specialists are out there looking at customers' applications and saying, what could we help you do better, faster, quicker, more ergonomic, and essentially for less money.
So when I was a kid, my mom would come home with these giant bags of off-brand cereal and these massive jars of peanut butter because allegedly buying in bulk made everything cheaper. So I asked Terry, if you're gonna buy a whole bunch of rigging equipment, doesn't that have to help the cost?
Bulk helps, especially for, some of the online stores are gonna give you a discount per quantities. Same with the brick and mortar rigging shops. They're gonna give you a discount based on quantities. The discounts come for the brick and mortar are all over the board. Sometimes it'll vary based on current sales level at that brick and mortar rigging shop. You know, they may be a little hungrier, so they're gonna give you a more of a reduced cost. The online type stores are a little more rigid in their discounting. You're not gonna call and wheel and deal with them. They're taking out the human interaction that you have with the brick and mortar, so there's no negotiation there.
So when I'm shopping online, I'm working under the pretense that I will get it in 2 days. And if I can't, I will find one of the other companies that can deliver it by that time frame. And I'm just a regular guy buying stuff. But if I have a facility who's doing production and has a specific building schedule, timeline has to be a factor. And I asked Terry, how does timeline play into the cost of rigging hardware?
Either way, wherever you buy it, it costs you more. You know, whether you're sending something next day air from an online rigging shop or whether you're calling on the phone to a brick and mortar or emailing a brick and mortar rigging shop, it's gonna cost you. The reason why it costs the end user is because it costs the supplier. They're stopping what they're doing, putting orders back, maybe overtime's involved, and there's a price for that.
So quantity, timeline, location of purchase, all of those things affect the cost of your rigging equipment. That makes sense. What I wasn't preparing for was that where you buy it from and where it's being shipped from directly affects the cost too. And that was something that I haven't even considered.
There's a lot of the online stores are either having somebody make it for them or they're importing it. So there's where you get a little bit of variation. Once that online store kind of loses its control over production, then you're going to have some issues possibly. Some people just don't care. You know, if they know it's the capacity, if they know it's going to do what it is they want it to do, they don't care where it comes from.
So whether or not you care about where your slings come from is 100% up to you. That's not what this video is for. But it got me thinking about quality control. So here in Cleveland, where I work, we test slings on a regular basis. At any point, I can walk out to the warehouse and see a guy named Jason stretching and brake testing slings. He'll test them for capacity, and then he'll stretch them far past their point until they break. And for me, it's cool to know that every single thing that comes in here, it's batch tested to make sure that that sling or that chain sling or whatever it is, does what it's rated to do. But it got me thinking that if you're buying online and you don't have access to the actual brick and mortar facility, how can you be sure about quality control?
I'm sure that they do. I can't speak for all online sellers, but there's got to be a certain amount of quality. I mean, you're talking about stuff that's lifting heavy products, heavy loads, and there's a risk involved with that. So there's got to be some traceability back to the manufacturer.
One of the last things I asked Terry about was what you, the end user, could do about controlling some of the costs or at least accounting for it. And he had a couple really good suggestions.
We see in the field that people really show very little care for what they should. You're talking about something that's lifting heavy products, and yet it's treated like, like a disposable item. We see people tearing things up. We see people not inspecting things. We see people really just beating up their equipment that other equipment they wouldn't. If people really just understood care, use, and inspection, save them a ton of money.
So, when considering the cost of your rigging equipment, there's a couple of things to consider. What are you buying? How much of it do you need? And what is your timeline for delivery? If you need it tomorrow, it'll cost a lot more than if you need it next month or next year. Do you know what you need, or do you need somebody to kind of walk you through that process? Because you're going to be paying for that service, but that lifting specialist or whoever's going to help you might be able to tell you to do something a slightly different way than you thought that might end up saving you money in the long run. And last but not least, do you care where it's coming from? Can it come from anywhere? Do you want to know where it's coming from? Do you need to see it up close? Do you want to tour the facility? All those things are important because you'll find different deals online than you will in a brick and mortar store. At Mazzella Companies, we offer all kinds of lifting solutions, chains, slings, hardware, all that have been brake tested to assure for quality assurance. We also have some of the best lifting specialists in the world. We also have 28 locations spread across the East Coast, Midwest, and through southern parts of the United States, fully stocked with different kinds of configurations and slings just to make sure that you have what you need as soon as possible. If you'd like to receive a quote for one of your forthcoming lifting projects, don't hesitate to reach out to a lifting specialist. They'd be happy to talk to you and give you some advice on what you need to do. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to this YouTube channel. We've made a bunch of videos already, and we're going to make a whole bunch more, and I don't want you to miss out on any of the training. And so thank you for watching.